Zadondani, Electro Ninja here, and welcome back to Electro Ninja's Lab. So, I know that I said at the beginning, as the title of this video, show Lunar some love, but at this point in time, you probably can't.
Game Arts.
That's not saying that it's impossible to actually play this game, check it out, all that stuff, but it's very, very challenging. Let me explain. So first off, if you want an English version of this game, more than likely it is going to run you several $100s. No matter what version you get, whether you get the original PS1 version, the complete version, again, PS1, or you get the PSP version, which that one might run you a little bit cheaper, but even still, many of their versions are going to be nearly $200 from what I've seen online. I happen to be lucky enough to find this for $40. Now, the reason that I was able to get this for so cheap is because my version happens to be a Japanese version, which obviously Japanese versions, especially over here in America, like nobody's gonna pick them up. Like if you can find a Japanese version of literally anything in a bookstore or a game store or whatever, and you have any inkling of wanting to check that series out, sometimes that might be your best option because it's there. Especially if you are someone who is wanting to learn Japanese or you know a little bit of Japanese yourself. I, for example, am not proficient in Japanese, but I at least can understand certain commonly used phrases. And oftentimes I will be watching an anime and I'll understand like certain words as they're coming through, just not huge numbers of the words. But I think that that's an important detail with why I'm specifically making this video to say show this game some love. If you are able to find it, then this game is actually really good. I managed to get some, I haven't done a whole lot for this game yet, but I really wanted to show my fans early on that this game is a really interesting game. For starters, the game is a standard turn-based RPG, and I have some clips of actually doing the combat. But one thing that I find really interesting about this game is that it has a special feature to basically fight with AI. Basically, each turn that you go through, you can actually set your character, you can either set your character to do whatever it thinks is going to be the best option, or you can just set your entire party to do whatever they think is the best option. And as for other attacks, it's fairly self-explanatory what is your best option, even if you're not necessarily going to be obviously, if you're trying to learn Japanese, and I think that this is a really good option, as a Japanese game to try to learn Japanese, because unlike other games, which you're basically going to be stuck, you have to go through each and every single piece of this to understand exactly what's going on. This game has a lot of little features that really assist you in still being able to get through the game, even if your primary focus is just on the story and you're just trying to learn what the story bits are. If you aren't too concerned with actually reading every single little piece of information during a battle, then you can still go through the game with some relative ease, which that's insane to me. It, like I said, it has an AI feature, so you can just have, basically have them auto-battling, or any of the different sections are clearly laid out as to what exactly each of these features does. There's actually an attack button that you can just hit this, and then it will automatically attack whatever you specifically decide to attack. It's your standard attack button. Then you have your magic, which is very clear as to what it is, being a purple little button that has magic on it. And then there's the defend button, which, yeah, clearly. And I think that that's a really interesting way to do it, especially considering the fact that many other standard JRPGs that are turn-based will often use text entirely. And just those little details help to really understand exactly what you're doing and figure out, start learning the actual systems. It's really interesting. As for the story itself, I really have very little idea, as I have just started out. But from basically what I've checked out so far, there was a demon lord. Heroes defeated him, and then eventually they died, and you are in the next generation. Like I said, very bare bones. I'm not going to go into much more than that, as I don't even know if that's 100% accurate. It may be something completely different. But you went, so obviously you can do that, and you have some friends and stuff like that, and maybe one day I'll actually do a full-fledged video on this, but it's going to take a while to get to that point. But with that, you, they have all of these different systems that are really interesting. And while I would love to play this in both English and Japanese at some point, Japanese is currently the only option. But that is kind of one thing that I really want to make this video talking about, is the fact that this game is so hard to come across, and there's many games like it that are just quite simply hard to come across. Whether you are a fan of the series, you may not be able to find some of your favorite games that you had growing up. Just for an example, one of my favorite games as I was growing up was the Dark Cloud series, and especially Dark Cloud 2, which is truly a fantastic game. And the original Dark Cloud 1, also pretty good, especially considering the fact that these two games were the first games of level 5, as in the Professor Layton people, as in Ni no Kuni, as in a lot of other really cool things that are coming their way. Level 5 has significantly gotten better since then, but their first two games were the Dark Cloud series, and these games are practically non-existent anymore. The only way that you're going to be able to play, that you can still play the first two Dark Cloud games, or Rogue Galaxy, is to get them on the PS2 and play through them on a PS2. You can't play them on the PSP, you can't play them on the Switch, you can't play them on the Xbox, the PlayStation, anything but the original PS2. And that boggles my mind that these two games, which are honestly some of the best games ever created, have never been at least ported. And I've made, me and the Nerd Chat crew actually talked a little bit about some games that we would absolutely love to see them get ported or remastered or remade. Obviously, certain games like the Final Fantasy games have been ported pretty much every single time. The only games that you're not really going to be able to find are the that haven't been ported are the more recent ones. Obviously, Final Fantasy 15, Final Fantasy 13, those two games, you don't really see them, you can't really play them on the newest consoles. But Final Fantasy 13, it kind of makes sense because it was a huge flop. But pretty much everything else has been able to continue onward. And you can still play Final Fantasy 15 on your PlayStation 5, or I think also it went to Xbox. I don't know details on Xbox stuff, so don't ask me. But that's my point. These games just get lost. And while huge games manage to continue to go forward, along with being ported or remade or remastered, what about the old games? The really good hidden gems of the world, they've rarely ever been ported or remastered. These games, while sometimes you will see an occasional one manage to make its way through, these games are hidden to their time. And like I said with Lunar, the only systems that you're able to play this thing on are the PS1 and the PSP. And that's it. And I don't even think that the second game was ever made to any system but the PS1. And that just boggles my mind that this game is just lost to all time. Why exactly would you hide away these, would you make these games only to never release them somewhere else? One of the things that I've noticed with just my merch store, for example, is just letting it be there. That's fine. Like, even if it's not the best thing ever, allowing people to still go and get these things, even if it's not necessarily the best time for it, allows me to still build up little bits of money every now and again to just come my way. Same thing with these games. These games, if you do not make content for them over and over and over again, then they'll fade away. And while sure, there is a possibility that eventually these games will make their way into the public domain to then be found by creators to want to make them, the likelihood of that is pretty low. But if you're the one who is creating the game, your best option, or even if you just have the rights to it, just porting it saves you a lot of time, and you don't necessarily have to be working on making sure that it's the best game ever. You can just port it while you make other stuff, making other content. And granted, porting can take a little bit of time, but just taking the recent stuff with Nintendo, for example, it really doesn't take that much. So, I don't know. Well, obviously, I think that we'll have to do a little bit more research before we actually delve deep into all of the lost games. But Lunar, I think, might have to be one of those games that eventually will be lost to time. And it's really sad. I recently posted a video that I called the Show Lunar Some Love trailer. That showed the opening to this amazing game, and just seeing that opening made me wonder, why would you never bring this back? Especially nowadays with how anime has basically become one of the biggest fandoms in the world. Imagining all of the huge anime nerds that would flock to this game, I find it like I said, it boggles my mind that the game didn't continue to get ported, especially as, sure, back then anime was nowhere near as popular as it is today, but it's continued to get popular as the time has gone on, as have JRPGs, and this really feels as much like a JRPG as, if not more so, than the Final Fantasies. So, I don't know. I don't know if this game it will remain lost, but we'll see. But with that, I do have one last question for you guys. Would you want to see a playthrough of this game? Obviously, I could absolutely do that. But I really want to make sure that people are interested in that before I start that up. Because, for one thing, this is going to take a lot of time to make. And it's going to take a lot of editing to make because of the fact that I'm going to... one of the things that I want to do with that is basically translate the entire game as I'm playing it into English so that people can actually understand exactly what's going on. And obviously, that's tricky. That is extremely tricky, especially since Japanese is one of those languages that's really freaking complicated. Especially if you are not fluent in the language, it can be very challenging to do so. So while I can absolutely do it, I do think that it will take a long time, and it would basically be a video series that I would have to spend like a month just with the editing and the voiceovers and stuff like that. So yeah, and cutting out all of that content just to make sure that it's as I'm flipping through pages to make sure that I'm saying things correctly. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see exactly what we do, but maybe. There are some things that I do think will not are putting me back from doing it. So that's one of the main reasons why I'm saying, if you guys want it, I'll make the game. But if you guys don't, I'm not gonna do it. Just period. There's so much with that is just really freaking challenging, especially like there's moments that are just cutscenes and there's no subtitles whatsoever, even in Japanese, and that's just gonna take me like hours to maybe months, maybe days, in order to edit that together. So be aware that it will take me a lot of time if we do this. So let me know down in the comments if you guys want me to actually play Lunar publicly and telling you guys all about this game, because like I said, it'll take me some time to actually get this together. But anyways, guys, hopefully you've enjoyed this video. If you did, please make sure to leave a like, leave your thoughts and theories down in the comments below, and of course, if you do have a theory, make sure to say in your comment, theory review. But anyways, guys, I've been Electro Ninja, and I will see you guys in the next one. But on!